Hey, welcome back for another episode. We got some really cool stuff to talk about, some stuff that's actually going on today we're going to talk about. But first, we're going to talk about what do we have in our mugs?
Yes, today's tea is chamomile. Chamomile tea. It is a favorite, a very popular tea. I love it. It's very good for night time. A lot of people like to have it before bed, um, but it's good for anxiety. So I'm going to talk about the magical benefits of, or the magical properties, I should say, of chamomile. And Pam is going to talk about the health, as we normally do. Talk about both. So for chamomile magic, the attributes are love, peace, beauty, healing, protection, sleep, and dreaming. And of course, the sleep and dreaming would make sense because it calms you and relaxes you and it helps you get to sleep.
It's interesting that they say protection.
I know. I thought that was interesting too. I was like,
Hmm.
And then its associations are sun, water, Virgo, Cancer, Leo, and Capricorn.
Well, I got left out of all of that one.
I know, me too. I'm Aquarius.
Dang, I'm a Taurus. Um, Chamomile's been used for eons. It is one of those staples that every Eastern shaman has. It's just one of those things they carry. It's like willow bark. You
Yes.
carry it.
Right.
It's good for reducing menstrual pain, which I did not know.
No.
I know the sleep qualities and the relaxing, but I guess it makes sense to relax the menstrual period.
Right.
Believe it or not, it's used for treating diabetes and lowering blood sugar.
Nice.
So that's it was a study in 2008 found that consistent consumption of chamomile tea might prevent blood sugar from increasing. And so it's telling, if you're diabetic and you want tea, you might as well drink something that's going to help you. Also, a thing for us women, it's another nice one. It's slowing or preventing osteoporosis.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I thought that was really different.
It's always a good thing.
Hey, anything we can do. And of course, it reduces inflammation, which is part of the menstrual cramps because you're inflamed. And they're actually talking about it for cancer treatment and prevention.
Oh, nice.
And it says it may target some cancer cells. Now, you have to understand when they do these studies, they're blind trial studies, they really try to get it down, but medicine is still an art. It is not an exact science. So we can't always repeat in the laboratory results. So until they can repeat it with some sort of consistency, they can't, really label it. But they found that the cancer fighting powers of a marigold and chamomile teas were both able to target cancer tumors selectively. Now, the effects of the marigold tea were more potent than the chamomile. So if you're going to do it, you might want to add a few marigolds to it. Of course, we all know it helps with sleep and relaxation. That's just a given. And that's what I've always heard. I never knew that. But want to treat a cold? Try some chamomile tea. And I did not know that. And for mild skin conditions, in 87, they said that by applying the chamomile extract to a wound, they found that the ointment may help with eczema and mild inflammatory skin conditions. But it's not as effective as hydrocortisone cream. So, but when you use that, you have to remember hydrocortisone is a steroid. And when you put it on your body, you get it in your body. So I've had issues. I have lupus, so it's an immune issue. And they like to treat it with steroids. So they like to put me on lots of steroids. But after a while, your body does not like the steroids. So I sit here and I think, well, maybe that would be a better alternative when I get my flares instead of hitting the hydrocortisone is to hit the chamomile tea. They're telling you, though, that infants and very young children do not give it to them because it's kind of like honey. They're not there yet. And they're saying, that for healthy adults, it's fine, but not for infants or very young children. So just keep that in mind. It's the same thing like honey. It has to do with the basic ingredients, and small children under 2 are not supposed to have honey anyway
Right.
because of botulism. So that just kind of, but it would be fine for kids in schools. So if you got a problem with the little one going to sleep, it might be a special time.
I know.
Yes.
I need to use that. The problem is she's so picky. So it's hard. Oh, you don't even know how long it took for me to get her to finally swallow honey. Like whenever she was having, a bad cough, and I would like give her honey, and oh, she would fight me on that. She's very
Well,
yeah.
the fun thing to do then is take her to the thrift store, let her pick out her own teapot and her own teacup.
That's true. Oh, I found a really, really cute one. It's like a unicorn one. It's got like the pot and 6 cups and saucers, but it's like, it's not plastic. It's like real porcelain.
Yeah.
But then they have another one that is plastic. But I was like, oh man, that would be so fun.
Yep. That always makes it, we had special spoons I did for the kids when they were younger. And that was the medicine spoon. And it kind of made the medicine go down a little bit easier because as the kids got older, I would forget where I put the spoons. And they're like, Mom, where's my spoon? I'm like, you're 16. You don't need your medicine spoon anymore.
Well, it would also make it fun too if you use those, fancy teaspoons.
That's what I had.
Yeah, and they have like they have some now, if you look, I've seen on Etsy, where they have like crystal points hanging out off the handle, and oh, how magical would that be? You got to take your magical medicine.
That would be cool. But back in the day, I had went to the thrift store and found, I guess it was a very old pattern, but it had a couple of spoons, and I just thought they were pretty. It was more or less more for decoration, but I couldn't get medicine into the one child. And I was like, oh, you could use one of my specials.
Yes.
And then they became the medicine spoon. So at 16, I was telling the youngest, I think you can handle it without the medicines. I think, but yeah, it was tough. He was 16. He had to bear that medicine in a regular spoon.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it was tough. But all those silly little things we do, and as they grow up, my kids are like me in the morning. It's coffee. No questions. But they are a little bit more tea drinkers in the afternoon, especially iced tea. And chamomile, like most of the other teas, if you sweeten it and let it go cold, like in the refrigerator after you, mix the honey with it, it is really good.
Yes, it is. And I don't even, in chamomile, I know I always do my weekly rating, honey or no honey. That's kind of like the thing now. For me, on the honey meter, I don't necessarily think chamomile needs it. I mean, it's definitely great with it, but it's sweet enough. It's good enough without it. It's got like a little bit of a floral scent, and you know what I mean. And it's a little sweet on the sweeter side.
It's not as bad as some of them.
Yeah, it's not real parky or
real earthy.
Yeah, earthy and.
But I do like it as a cold tea.
Yes.
So I've made sun tea with it. Put the honey in there with the hot water, let it do the sun tea, get it a nice heavy consistency. Now, unlike what we used last week, you can use green tea for chamomile, and it's good. It doesn't have to be a strong tea. Or if you want a strong tea, you can use a strong tea, but any flavor of tea will work with it. Now, they have some that have lemon already in the tea. So if you get like the green tea with lemon and put chamomile on top of it, it gives you a whole new flavor. Or if you put a lemon in the sun tea.
Yeah. I have even my echinacea. I have where they have some where it's echinacea, and then you can also get the echinacea with lemon, like it comes with like lemon peel and stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that helps keep that edge off.
Yeah, There was also a few magical properties that I wanted to go over about chamomile, other than just the associations and attributes. So, washing your hands in chamomile tea attracts abundance. So, we should just dip our hands in our.
I was going to say, I just put it right here on my hand.
Adding dried chamomile flowers to your bath water to purify your body and relax your mind.
I was going to say you would smell that. That would be.
Oh yeah, with that hot warm water. Sprinkle a handful of dried chamomile flowers around your home to create a circle of protection. So there's that protection again. Sprinkle powdered chamomile into your shoes to release negative energy. Now that I never heard of. That is really interesting.
Interesting.
I'm getting my mortar and pestle right after this.
Pull that mortar and pestle out and work on it.
Oh crap! I guess it would be kind of hard to put on to keep in flip-flops. We're in Florida.
Yeah, we're in Florida. You have 3 pair of flip-flops, and
right. It would be kind of hard to contain that powder in flip-flops. I'll make a little satchel and tie it to my toes.
So you have to put it in your Sunday go to meeting.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Good ones. I just started working. We moved to a warehouse in April, but I didn't get there until a couple months ago. So I always wore sandals. So now I have to wear closed-toed shoes. I have exactly 3 pair of closed-toed shoes. Everything is flip-flops.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're gonna, now I'm gonna have to break down and buy some shoes for work because I cannot walk in the warehouse with flip-flops on. OSHA would not like me.
No, that would be a problem.
There was an interesting show on. I have to bring you this because you guys are not going to believe this. Now, what is it that we witches do once a month? We go out and celebrate the full moon, right? Very simple.
Right.
And if we can get out, we go out. I mean, sometimes it's not possible if it's pouring down the rain or if it's 20 below outside, but the whole thing is focusing on that full moon. Well, believe it or not, I was watching the news, tail end of the news on Thursday when I got home from work, and it might have been Entertainment Tonight or one of those, whatever comes after the news. And they actually had my roommate and I are sitting there. We're both watching it. And she's pagan friendly. She's not pagan, but she's used to all of this. So she's like, "What is that?" And I'm watching it. I'm shocked. I'm like, "Oh, it's called moon bathing. Outside, to take a blanket and lay down and let the moon bathe you in its light." Okay, now guys, this is not a witch show. This is ABC, okay? I'm sitting there going, what? And they are talking about the benefits of doing this and how it releases negative energy. And I am sitting there like, and she's like, "What you doing?" And she's looking, and I'm like, well, I'm shocked. So I'm staring at the stupid TV going, no. And I won't say what I said. Can't repeat it. Like, no way. Now, not only do they have that, they now have a gentleman put together a vodka drink for you to drink while you're out under the full moon.
Oh, fancy.
I'm sitting there going, we've been doing this for how many millennia now?
I know. It's like, now it's got to be a thing. Just like they, oh gosh, don't get me started. The whole sage and tarot, marketing tarot and fashion shows.
It amazed me that they're actually talking about the health benefits.
Right. It's like, oh, now you're getting a clue.
I'm sitting here and I'm watching it. Now, the commercial, they showed a commercial for it. A beautiful young girl, of course, the big moon is full and it's a perfect lawn, and she lays a little blanket down. Of course, she's dressed in black, just a little black dress on, and she lays there under the moon. And I'm like going, holy cow, maybe we've been doing it wrong the whole time. Maybe we need to lay down instead of stand up and dance. But anyway.
Oh my God, too funny.
And then the guy comes on with this, and it's a whole kit. It is a kit that he's selling. I'm going to have to find out about it. But if anybody wants to Google that, that would be like, I am flipping out. I mean, this was on ABC News, and they're talking about the benefits of full moon bathing.
Oh
And
man.
let me tell you, the mind got totally bonkered. And I was like, you're kidding me. So this guy has this satchel now, and it has the vodka, and it has, I don't know, he's got some stuff to go in it, and it has a little shaker, you know. And I'm going like, seriously, seriously, we pagans have been going out under the moonlight drinking for how long? Ever since the
Hey,
invention.
maybe it'll help if maybe we can get Cloud to make us some memes for. I asked him, I was like, we need you to make some tea time memes because they're so hilarious. And maybe he can make memes like, you know, moonbathing, like it'll be a news anchor saying, get your moonbathing kits, and it's like pagan, like you're just now figuring this out. Maybe it'll finally make us seem like normal people, and you know, we won't feel like the devil worshiping, you know.
It broke me up. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting here and I'm like totally into this. I am like so focused on this. I can't even hear my roommate. She's going, I know what you do. I'm like, no, yeah, but no, yeah. It's it was really interesting. So they were talking about there are actual benefits to this, and I was like shocked. They were talking to somebody in Scottsdale, Arizona, which I'm like, why do they have to go that far? They could just come to any witch and we would tell them, but you know how it is. I guess we don't count. But there are studies now being done about going in to go out and lay in the full moon and absorb the moonbeams or to soothe your body and your mind. Okay. So I was just a little like, seriously, guys, really. But evidently, moon bathing may be the wellness practice you need to try. I'm not kidding you. I am reading these and I am like, seriously? And seriously, it's true. It's right here. It's crazy.
Well, maybe this is the answer for all of us to come together. It's like,
It's like, okay, 50 years ago, you couldn't even mention the word.
right.
Heaven forbid anybody know that that's what you did, or that you studied, or that
Right.
you were making herbal teas. Oh my goodness, if you made an herbal tea, people thought you were out of your mind.
Even like we talked in, you know, even, I mean, even now, of course, you can be more out now, but even like now, you still feel like in certain areas or regions, you have to be careful where you say it and around who. And I remember being at work and I had a book on my desk that I was reading, and I don't recall the name of the book at the moment, but and then I had a coworker that I was supposed to be doing a makeup training with because she was like out the day we had a training. So I was basically filling her in. And so she came to my desk and she saw the book and her eyes lit up and she goes, wait, are you, like talking about being a witch? She was like, wait, are you? And I said, yeah, are you? And she goes, yeah. And we're like best friends. Our kids go to school together. Like, you know, that was it.
And
And
it's
it's
kind of funny
another
because
witch in the wild is what I call it. When you find another witch in the wild, it's really
it's
like,
interesting because for a long time, all of our practices were condemned.
right.
People, you know, the minute you said, you know, the W word or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that, people were immediately, you know, like, oh my goodness, no. But
Right.
it's interesting because the moon is more calming and it puts us in a receptive and open place. Now they list here, and I happen to love this little thing that they said because you know me. Moon bathing is a practice of placing oneself under the moon, either seated or lying down, clothed or disrobed, just as you would when you sunbathe.
Mm.
Okay, ladies.
Well then,
I don't know. And they're talking about full moon. The ancient Greeks worship the moon. That was a shock, wasn't it? Sorry.
Right. Now
Um,
now we have kids, a way for people
well,
to make money.
they actually have meditation music to go with your moon bathing.
Oh,
Oh, yes, we do. And um, sunbathing is something we very often do because, yeah, we kind of get sunburned. We're good at that. But it helps us connect with our more spiritual side. Sorry. And allows us to take in the medicine of our own intuition. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm reading this and I am like, I'm freaking out because this is like really, um, and what it says is it works for an equilibrium, sun and moon,
Mhm.
kind of like what we've been teaching for umpteen million years. And the calming and soothing of the nervous system can also help to heal inflammation. So while you're laying out there in the sun, and of course you don't need, oh, and the phase of the moon matters, like we didn't already know that, but yeah. During the new moon, complete darkness, you may feel more perspective, like you're taking in a lot. The new moon is the best time to plant the seeds of our intentions and call energy in.
Did
Oh,
they said all of this on the news?
mhm. And it's also, you can Google it.
Wow.
I am totally freaking out. This is one of the last pieces of witchcraft that has not been introduced into mainstream society until now.
Right.
Introduced our herbal teas.
Hmm.
Spells are given.
Right.
Everybody knows,
They're also prayers. I mean, spells are basically
their
prayers
prayers set to rhyme so we can remember them.
set
Um,
within. Absolutely.
are setting our intentions, which
Mhm.
is something we witches better be doing every day. Um,
Manifesting and visualization.
and writing in our journals. Now
Journal.
every therapist tells you, where's your journal?
Right.
So every little piece of what separated us, so to speak, has now been dissolved. This last part, going out and laying in the moonlight,
Hmm.
it's flipping me out because this is the last part of our vestiges. Okay, now they're going to come out and they're going to join us in the moonlight. So when we go out and we set our intentions and we decide what we're going to do, I believe it's called a ritual, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe. But can you imagine? I'm sitting here reading this, and from my perspective, which is a much older perspective, when you couldn't even let anybody see your books. Literally, I have borrowed books or taken them from the library and covered it in brown paper bags
Oh
so
yeah.
I could read them anywhere. Because if someone saw you with a book in your hand that said that, I mean, you were condemned, that there was no going back.
And one of the reasons why we sort of did the, Mother and Crone with the show is to show different aspects and, differences. So you're mentioning a story about having to cover up with brown paper bags. I had a really neat, interesting story about going to the library. So I would always get as many books as I could, of course, on Wicca and pagan, because if you found them, it was a treasure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yes, I'm in a big city, but I'm still in the South. And they just, depending on the region, like certain in Jacksonville is huge. So we have several libraries. So one side of town may have more than the other, sort of. But I checked out a bunch of books, and she recognized what I was getting, and she goes, "Have you ever?" She's the one that introduced me to Starhawk, and she said, "Have you ever read The Spiral Dance?" And I said, "No." At the time, I had never heard of it. And she was like, oh, you have to get that. And she goes, and so the next time when I returned my books that I had, the next time that I went in, I checked it out and she was checking me out and she goes, oh, good choice. And so I thought that was pretty neat. But it was kind of low, but she still did it kind of low key. But it was, I mean, but it was cool to have like that connection with a random librarian. But because it wasn't just recommending a book, you could tell she was, involved.
You.
Right, exactly.
This is a good book.
Right. Like I've read it and I like it as well. It's like I'm on the same wavelength.
Well, now when I was first doing this, most of the Wiccan books or the pagan books were actually in the reference part, and you had to sign it out from the librarian. Depending on which librarian was working, it was whether or not you got the book.
Yeah, a lot of reference books you can't even check out. You have to keep them in the library.
Oh, no. You were allowed to check out and stay at the library with it.
Right, yeah.
But
you have to like stay there. Oh,
yeah, and certain librarians would tell you, oh, it's not there. Well, how do you know you haven't even, oh, it's not there, meaning you weren't getting that book. It didn't.
Yeah.
So exactly. I go from that to where ABC News has moon bathing
I know.
on a Thursday night. I was like, oh my God, it must be a slow news night. That's all I could figure. But I mean,
the times are changing. So
with what's going on with everything in the world, I mean, like Cuomo's having issues, the mayor of New York and all, and I'm sitting here going, oh my goodness, with all of that, you think they'd find something else to focus on, but nope, here they got moon bathing. So, ladies and gents, maybe that we should all try some moon bathing. I'm sitting here trying not to.
I joined your full moon ritual, of course. I always come to your rituals, virtual circle with Pam and Mary. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. Shameless plug. They're awesome. But I'm pretty sure I live in an apartment, but I have this nice big porch, this covered porch. But still I live in an apartment. And I'm pretty sure that when I was doing the full moon ritual the other night, I had my pieces of paper and my cauldron and I was burning it on the porch. I'm pretty sure my neighbors across the street were wondering what the hell I was doing. and I was and when you were calling the quarters, I was calling them right there with you and turning the directions, and they were probably thinking I was nuts. I was like, well, it's dark outside. So
it's dark.
But it was so funny. I was like, oh.
It's interesting because this is you can't get any more mainstream than ABC TV. Let's first of all be honest about that.
Right.
It wasn't local. It was the broadcast.
Right, yeah, national.
So they're talking about moon bathing, and I'm sitting here going like, wow, that was almost like the last thing to bring forward that nobody else has really claimed except for us. We do the,
right,
dark moon and full moons, but it was just interesting. Now it's on the news. So I was like totally flipped out. I so wanted, it was like, I don't have anything to record it with. I almost grabbed my phone and started filming it. But
another thing that people have, that's a thing now that we've known about for a long time that I forgot to bring up is earthing, like walking bare feet and touching the earth and, feeling that energy and absorbing that energy. There's documentaries and all sorts of things and articles, and it's been in magazines and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, so that's even been brought up.
And believe it or not, that is from the 70s. Back in the 70s, when they first started making the sandals with the heel lower than the toes, there was a lot of talk about earthing, and there's been a lot of talk about us putting something between our feet and the earth.
Right.
Because they're claiming that a lot of foot problems and back problems are due to people walking on concrete and asphalt and things of that nature and not earthing enough.
Right.
And I grew up, part of my time was spent in West Virginia on a farm. The other part was spent in Baltimore, but I don't think I ever wore shoes unless I was absolutely had to.
Yeah.
I'm one of those barefoot children that, the mother
Mike,
was constantly going, "Where's your shoes?"
I know. Mike grew up in a small town until he was 10. He was 10 when they moved to Jacksonville. But he's the same way. Where he lived was very rural, very small town, outside of Jacksonville. It's probably like an hour away. But yeah, and he would always be barefoot. He never wore shoes. And so uh and I always, being in the city, I always wore, I mean, still flip flops, but I always had, so my feet are a lot more sensitive than his. So it's just funny because that's like a thing we always talk about. But
Yeah, and that was the thing
yeah,
back in the 70s. They had talked about earthing, but it was never, no studies had been done on it. And the
right.
people who talked about it were the ones that did co-ops and communes and, so it was all kinds of craziness. And we were the leftover hippies. It was basically what it was. But now I have several books on earthing, and I was amazed. I do it naturally. I didn't even know that it was a thing, but if I'm
I
sitting,
didn't either. I had no idea when it started coming out, because I subscribed to a TV subscription, and it has a lot of alternative medicines and more spiritual things, and it had things like earthing, and it'll have things like yoga and meditation, all that sort of Eastern medicine type of thing, and all the documentaries about the GMOs and all that type of stuff. So it's a really good subscription, but then that's where I saw the whole earthing documentary, and then I started seeing all these articles more and more. But when I saw the thing about and I'm like, that's what that is, like it has a name. Like I didn't realize. I
I
mean, I personally, it may have been called that forever and may have been well known to the majority of society. I have personally just never heard of it
I
called.
never heard it called earthing. As
Like,
such,
yeah, I'm just walking on earth. I don't, I
yeah,
never,
we called it barefooting. You
right,
know,
exactly. I'm walking bare feet. I'm like, that's all I would call it.
that's
But
all I knew it was. But I'm one of those. I'm according to the books, I'm a natural. Whenever I'm sitting, I do tend to kick my shoes off and rub my feet in the dirt or in the grass.
yeah,
And I'll sit there, and just play with my feet in the grass. And it's like, I never knew it was a thing, but now it's a thing.
yeah.
So
That's
that, I guess, hey, we can do earthing with moon bathing. We can do
there
it
you
together.
go. Yay.
And if you take all your clothes off and lay down on the grass, then I guess that's called bodying.
They'll have some sort of name for it, I'm sure.
Yeah, pretty soon they're going to censor us on this one. But
That's
I just thought it blows my mind to think of even 30 years ago.
right.
You didn't say it. Now, I'm from Baltimore. I lived in Baltimore most of my life. So I'm from the South, but I lived in Baltimore and I went to school in Baltimore. So that's a pretty big metropolitan, Baltimore, Maryland. Add the
Right.
Maryland in there. When you're from Baltimore, Maryland, you just say Baltimore, and there's like 400 cities called Baltimore, but we think we're
Right.
the only one. But I grew up in a big town. Baltimore's not little by any stretch.
No.
And it never, some of these things, like I'm in a town, cosmopolitan. Baltimore is a lot more moving and shaking than sometimes New York is, because we have a lot of the same things going on. We're a port city. We get all kinds of people in all the time. But I never knew about, like, we never talked about Wiccan or witch or even it was a little bit harder to talk about, like if you start talking about commune living or, that kind of stuff. It was like, oh, you need to go to California. Just go
Right.
out, you'll be all right.
Mm.
There wasn't a lot of that in Baltimore. Now, Baltimore is enormous for pagans. It's huge. There's
Right.
a very large pagan group up there in Baltimore, DC. It's alive. But as it got more larger and larger, I mean, we were actually being accepted more and more. I mean, we've actually done pagan pride on the mall in DC. We've
Yeah.
had it. So
That's
um,
cool.
yeah, that was really great because, I mean, you're on the hall in DC for pagan pride,
That's
so it was interesting, but I really have to say that I am very surprised about all of this now coming to, like,
yeah,
we had always hoped we could go out in public, and the biggest thing was nobody really caring, just, oh, so you're a witch, cool, or
right.
you're Protestant, cool, you're Catholic, cool. And that's always been our big, one day we would like to be accepted for who and what we are. And it seems like every time I turn around, something that we've done for
Yeah,
eons is becoming popular now.
I know.
It
Well,
is
that's
popular now to journal.
with witch talk. That's a thing.
But I'm finding out it's really strange. People are no longer, you don't have the shock factor. You know,
Right.
let's be honest, we've all used that as a shock factor on certain people because there's times when you just need to say, well, I'm a witch, so you better be careful. You don't want to say it often, but every once in a while that's got to slip out.
Or
And
not.
now it doesn't hold any threat, dang it. So
I know, because everyone's doing it. It's like a fad.
I know. And it's like, well, dang, when you used to say that back in the day, people were like, ooh,
I
really?
know. But I mean, but the important thing is, I think that ultimately, people will understand, hey, this isn't bad, or hey, this is awesome. And then we have the opportunity to say, yeah, this is what, I do.
But
And
I do.
then but it's more of like, it's a good opportunity to educate. You know what I mean?
It
It's a
is.
good opportunity for us to be able to break stigmas and things like
And to let people know that we're actual real people. I had a
right.
work incident a couple years back where I don't tell people unless I'm pressed, just because of the experiences I've personally had.
Right.
It's always you got to decide whether or not to show it or to hide it. But
Right.
I had been at work at this one place for, I guess, about 4 or 5 months. And my car has on the back of it like coexist and, just little things like evolve with the little fish, and the feed on it or something silly. I always had silliness. One of them says magic happens, which has been around for years,
Yeah, I have
so.
one that says life's a witch and then you fly.
Right. But I
Yeah.
never had anything that obvious on my car. It was just a couple of little stickers here and there. And one of the girls finally came in and she says, I have to ask you something. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, what? And I was the office manager. So you're always on like, oh God, now what?
Yeah, you never know where that's gonna go.
You're like, oh no, don't ask for a day off. I can't do this. So she's like, I was looking at your car. I'm like, is there something wrong with my car? I'm thinking
Right.
somebody hit it or something in the parking lot. She's like, no, but you got a sticker on there. And I'm
Like,
like, what stickers on my car? And I'm trying to think who would put a sticker on my car.
right.
And I'm like, you want to explain a little bit more and your concerns, or do you have a concern? She's like, well, you got to think out there, this is magic happens. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And I'm like, yeah, it happens. And she says, you got that at Walt Disney World, didn't you?
That's funny.
At that point, I lost it. Okay. Because I am expecting
Like,
just something else. And I
right.
started laughing hysterically. And I said, no, honey, I didn't. But I'm glad
Yeah.
you like it.
But it's just funny.
Okay. So here's my second question. Because I have a question if you would have told me no. And I'm like, oh, here she is. That magic means magic, doesn't it?
Mm,
And I went, yes, it does. She said,
nice.
that's funny because you don't act like a witch. Mm,
Like, what's it
mm.
supposed to act like?
And you sit there and you're like, okay, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And she
Right. I
says,
think it's
well,
people have the perception of, a lot of people have perception of
right. And you
what.
have this in your mind. And I said, well, is it a bad thing or a good thing? She says, well, I would have never known you were a witch. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what?
Not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just, oh, I don't know.
And I looked at her and I said, and you know what? I don't even know what your religious path is.
Right. Yeah.
And she stopped and she went, oh, I didn't even think of it as a religious path.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's a good opportunity to educate people.
So it came to a very good discussion, which I was happy for. Now, where I work now, oh hell, everybody knows I'm a witch, and you should hear them.
Right.
They get silly every once in a while, and we have fun with it. We really do because it's all done in jest, and I'm very well respected. But every once in a while, someone will say, "Hey, I'm moving your broom.
Right.
So if
Right.
you need to leave today, your broom's up front, not in the back." You know.
Everyone, I mean, I've been working from home, gosh, for a year now since COVID. But when I did work in the office and everybody everybody knows because my desk is completely decorated and I would have, pictures on my cubicle walls and stuff. And oh yeah, it was very apparent. So everybody knew.
Well,
Plus I
it's
had my pinnacle necklace, so
in my job, my boss always teases me. He'll say something like, you're gonna whip up something here so we can get the day going by faster, or
right.
don't you have a spell for that? And
Yeah, that's always the thing. My mom does that.
it's done all in good fun, but it's funny because nobody even at work even thinks twice. We hired a few people and somebody made some comment about me being a witch. And they're like, oh, you're gonna call her that? And oh, you don't understand. She really is.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a young man, and he was like, "You mean she's?" And yeah, hell, she's a witch. And it was left at that. Nobody. And he finally, he was a little standoffish for a day or two, and then he finally came up and asked me about it. And I was like, "You mean they didn't tell you ahead of time?" And he started laughing. And
Oh god.
he says, "Well, does everybody know?" And I'm like, "Good Lord, I hope so."
That's funny.
He's just like, oh, well, I said, my desk, I have my crystal ball because every time someone starts crap, let me get my crystal ball out. And I bring my ball out. Yep.
Haley crystal ball, yeah.
I have,
I need a little one for my desk.
I have a smaller one.
Eventually we're supposed to go back. We just don't have an ETA on it. But yeah, I'll have a little one whenever I go.
And then I have a wand and it's a silly wand. I did a wedding and they got me this beautiful wand and it's got a star at the end and it's silver. It's actually silver plated and it's full of little gemstones.
Oh, pretty.
And it has my name on it. And I can.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was a gift for doing a wedding for a couple, and I treasure it. And it's work, and it sits on my desk. So when someone starts some crap, I bring out the wand. You beat that out of you today, you know. And it's like, hey,
That's
but
well, I also wanted to oh, were you gonna say something? I'm sorry.
no, we're going to talk about what is it today?
Well, last week I talked about the goddesses of Ostera, so we're just gonna we're almost out of time, but we want to finish up Ostera because we have something else planned for next week's show. But last week I talked about the goddesses, so this week I'm going to talk about the gods.
And honestly, the gods on a lot of these holidays. Now, everybody knows the Holly King and the Oak King, but the gods aren't very so much mentioned on a lot of these holidays. So
I know.
it's kind of good to hear about the other side.
Yeah, that's why I want to focus on both the male and female, because it is important, masculine and feminine, as that is what we are, both. So I found a few that I was just going to touch on because I thought it was interesting, and of course there's many. It would take me way too long to discuss all of them, but these are just a few that I found associated with spring and fertility, like we've discussed before. The first one is Osiris, the Egyptian. He's in the Egyptian pantheon. He's considered the king of the Egyptian gods and the first pharaoh. he's the twin brother of Isis, and he taught mankind the secrets of farming and agriculture. So, this time, beginning the seeds beginning to grow. So, and also this I found was interesting. According to myth and legend, he was thought to have brought civilization itself to the world. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. The next one is Thor, which is a Norse god.
Really?
Yes, I thought that was interesting. So
Put him in.
it says not a lot of them, but some would consider him a god of spring because he is a god who brings rain, which helps fields grow.
Okay. Okay, got me on that one.
He presides over wind, rain, and crops. So I thought that was interesting because I was like, you don't go there, so I thought that was interesting that they pointed out how if you look at him in a different angle, that's how some would consider him that way.
Right, and I never would have put that together.
I wouldn't have either, so I thought that's why I'm including it. Another interesting one that you wouldn't put together, Freyr, the Norse god, he's usually considered a summer god. However, some also consider him a spring god because he has the duty of gestation and growth. And also the male god of fertility.
Okay, that makes sense, but I never thought, in your mind, you don't think of
Well,
that.
and also so many of them, just like we know, most commonly probably Hecate or Hecate, how many epithets they have, the characteristics, they can be so, stand for so many different things. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And then of course you have Cernunnos, which is Celtic god of fertility, animals, and the underworld. And then Pan, of course, god of the wild, shepherds and flocks and nature. So those were just a few that I wanted to touch on because I thought they were interesting. But yeah, I was really interested with the Freyr and the Thor because I was like, really?
I would have never, ever. Thor to me, I guess because of not just TV, but reading about Thor, he's always been a Zeus type god,
Right.
and sort of like, I don't know, I would have put him in charge of like weather or something,
Right,
just,
But
yeah,
but if you think about it, like it does take rain, for
yeah,
the, and
April
so
showers.
yeah, exactly. So I thought that was interesting. So speaking of crops, I also wanted to touch on, and I'm not going to go over like ingredients or things like this, but just ideas for some recipes that I thought were interesting points that I found. So around for Ostera, when you're thinking about your Ostera meal, of course we've already talked about some of them. You can do like the traditional ham and lamb and hot cross buns and things like that. But some of the things you might not think about, this is specifically a recipe. This says steamed asparagus with lemon, but any type of asparagus that you want. And the reason why asparagus is used is because it's pretty much the first plant to be harvested. It's it's ready very early in the year. So it's perfect to eat while celebrating the first day of spring. So I thought that was interesting. And then also there's a recipe for garlic mushrooms. I love mushrooms. But of course, anything mushrooms. And it says with the melting snow, of course, we don't get that down here, but we still get a ton of rain, of course, because it's Florida. But the example it gives is with the melting of the snow and the coming of the rain, the mushrooms will soon be out in full force. So any spring meal is the perfect time to include them. So I thought that was interesting because of the association with the rain, and the mushrooms. So I thought that was interesting for that springtime.
Yeah, now that I can see. I didn't know we didn't grow asparagus on the farm, so I
Oh,
don't.
it's a huge deal in California. Like I have the visor to prove it. They have asparagus festivals out.
Okay.
Yeah, I have
Yes.
Asparagus Festival 1993 or 95, something like that. No, 92. I don't know, but I was like 5. I was 8, somewhere around there. Asparagus Festival, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
But yeah. And the other thing I wanted to touch on really quickly before we wrapped up, we were talking briefly last week about, some of the different things you can do. We talked about divination and the decorations, but I also wanted to touch on some of the fun things that you could do, like games and stuff that I thought was interesting. So about the egg races where you can race with the holding the spoon in the or the holding the egg in the spoon. But there's also a version where you can do the egg racing holding the egg anywhere, like somewhere, while not using your hands. So some people will use their neck, and you have to be, and people usually will do hard-boiled eggs for this, so you're not, but the point is to not crack them still. I mean, you're still not supposed to crack them, but you can use your neck, or some people, put them in their thighs or the crick of their elbow. And then over time, if you want, you can add eggs. So you can be walking around like this, or, so it's supposed to be a lot of fun. So I was like, oh man, I can see myself doing that one.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, that was really fun. And then there's another one where you can do an egg toss, where you have pairs of 2, and you toss an egg back and forth, but you step back after each time, so you're creating a further distance, and then whoever the egg cracks on loses. Again, probably better for a boiled egg.
Oh, it's a lot more fun with raw eggs. I've done it with
yeah
it's messy, but it's fun.
I think the raw egg would be good too. Another one I thought was interesting was the egg dance. So, and I've never heard of this, so I wanted to share. It says the egg dance may actually go back hundreds of years, but for many people, this is a little known tradition that seemed to have been far more popular in Germany and the United Kingdom than it ever was in America. And the egg dance is an annual event at your Ostera gathering, typically. And the concept is easy. So you fill an area, preferably grass, with a bunch of eggs scattered around. And then you dance in that same area while trying to avoid destroying the eggs.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine? And it says examples of songs for this activity that would be great to go with it is Lord of the Dance or Lisa Thiel's Ostera Spring Song. And of course there's many.
Monster mash, because that's what's going to end up with the eggs. They're going to get mashed.
Right. I know, but I thought those were just some fun things.
That's an interesting concept, dancing around the eggs.
I know, but it's like a fun thing, like you're being goofy, you're dancing, but you're also, it's fun.
But it's almost like a ritual thing if you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we dance around a fire.
Yeah.
And dancing with the eggs is it's very maternal.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I was like, ooh, I thought those were really fun. Those seemed really fun.
Yeah, it'd be lots of fun if everybody did something and let us know what your traditions are, because as many people as there are that many traditions. I mean, like the eggs, the Ukrainian eggs are all
we talked about those.
goodness. And just the different meals that people really, I mean, some people really go out plan for a big, spring meal like that. And it is interesting for the traditions. And I would love to hear some of them. If y'all get a chance, if someone would just pop one in for us, or even a picture or two, and show us what you're doing.
Absolutely. Always feel free to comment on our videos and share with us your you know, how you like or don't like the teas. If you've experienced, you know, interact with us on the Facebook page, Tea Time with Mother and Crone. And as always, you're welcome to suggest topics and teas. The chamomile tea was actually suggested. I had a request for something good for diabetes, so I was happy to do that. And also, don't forget to go over to our YouTube channel, Tea Time with Mother and Crone, and like and subscribe so you get those lovely notifications when we go live every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time.
And really keep up with us on some of the things, because we are going to be doing a whole bunch of different stuff coming up soon. Some crazy stuff as usual. Nothing we do is ever normal or
Right.
way you would plan for it. We plan this stuff, okay? And let me tell you what happens. The goddess looks down and laughs and
Right.
laughs, and then she plans it for us, and we just follow.
We have a whole show binder where we have a schedule, and you know, sometimes we go along and sometimes Goddess is like, yeah, no, you're doing this.
Or else she'll throw something at us that is too good to miss. Tonight was one of those nights. It was too good to miss. That's moon bathing.
Yeah.
So
it was a conversation. Yep.
now look out, they're going to be a fashion for moon bathing. Just like we have sunbathing suits, we're going to have moon bathing suits.
If you kind of think about it, if you think about it, the whole bath bomb craze, I mean, that's pretty much a glorified like herbal bath. You know, it's like they're catching on to all of our
secrets. You almost feel that way. It's funny, but it's not. I mean,
I know it is funny, but it's not. I mean, it's quite annoying. And I mean, I don't want to say annoying. It's what I don't appreciate is it being a fad, it not being taken seriously. I mean, I like that it's getting out there, you know, on Witch Talk and all of that, because I do honestly feel it's a good educational, you know, to where we can, you know, really educate people and make them realize that we're just like everybody else, you know. Phyllis Currott is a perfect example. Phyllis Currott is a perfect example. You know, lawyer, you know, it's just we're normal people. You know, we're not, you know, it's just like
it's
so
interesting.
I mean, it does help normalize, but I just don't like, you know what I mean? It's not something to be made fun of, I guess.
Right. And we feel the same with the Native Americans. A lot of their stuff is Halloween is really bad for them.
Yeah.
They take the native costumes and do all sorts of things, but look what they do to us witches. But it makes it a little bit normal. So it makes conversation a little bit easier sometimes. We're not so afraid. And I absolutely love when I go into stores that aren't necessarily quote unquote new age, but they carry certain things.
Yeah.
You walk in, and I know in Florida, in Kissimmee, in Old Town, there's a store that has a lot of rocks in it, and you know, different kinds of gems. And it's a really cool place to go into because they have all of these wonderful crystals, you know.
Right.
So, actually, my one granddaughter and I went there. So Emmy and I go, and she's 18, so she's aware. And I don't see her that often because she grew up down here, and was in Baltimore at the time. But we were walking through the store, and she starts asking me different questions on the different crystals. Now, I know a lot about crystals, but I'm no expert by any means, but I do know the basic crystals. So we're walking through and we're talking about them. And every time, you know, like she went over and I go over and she'd say, well, what about this one? And I talk about it, you know, for a minute or two, and we go on to something else. We were followed. There was a woman, I would guess in her late 30s. They're just following us around and listening to us. And I got a little uncomfortable at first, because at first I thought, oh, she's an employee seeing if we're stealing, which we're not. But then I started watching. She was listening into our conversation about the different magical. Now, when I was with her, I was talking magical properties of of the stone, not necessarily the hardness or where it was. I don't
Right.
know that, but I can tell you what the stone is good for, so that's where I was at with her. We
Right.
were talking the magical properties. And finally, Emmy had went off, something caught her eye and she took off, and I was standing there because I got fascinated by a stone. And the woman came up and said to me, she says, I hope you don't mind. I've been kind of listening. And I'm sitting there going, starting to get a little nervous, but yeah. And she's like, you come here often? And I'm like, no, this is my first time here. She's like, you know so much about the stones. I went, well, that's kind of something
Right.
I do. And
Yeah.
you kind of don't want to start anything in public. So you kind of just say that and move on. And I am tattooed. So it's a little obvious. Everybody asks me, and she
Yeah.
walks up to me and she says, oh, so
Well,
you do this for real. And I'm like,
the tattoos make it official.
yeah, I do it for real. And she's
Right.
that's your granddaughter? And I was like, that's one of them. It's like, oh, did she do it for real? I said, no, we're still on the fence on that one with this one. So the other two, definitely. And
Yeah,
she's, oh,
that's funny.
so
I found Haley a couple of there was a box full of crystals. It was like a crystal, and it was all these small, they were smaller, but they were tumbled stones, but they were several in a small bag of like amethyst, and they had like clear quartz and all these things. And it was in a thrift store for like 25 cents. And
mhm.
it's like these people don't even realize what they're doing. Like what they're it's like, so when you're a witch, you're like, oh, give me. So when I saw that, I was like, what? And then I saw another one in the thrift store. It's like a long sort of little treasure chest sort of box that flips open. And it would be like perfect for incense and things like that to store. But it has all of these crystals like glued to the whole thing. And it's like tiger's eye, and it's all sorts of different, and it's like these people, and it was like $1. It's like these people have no idea like how awesome this is.
I worked for Goodwill Suncoast for a couple
Mhm.
of years down here in Florida. And I did pricing and some of the other stuff. And I got to see some of the things and some of the stuff that came through the store. I was like, oh, I got a beautiful pestle and mortar. Um,
Oh,
We have to leave it on the shelf there. Believe it or not, the people that work at Goodwill, you're not allowed to purchase it till it's been on the shelf for 3 days.
oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, employees do not.
I could never work there, because if I see something, I'd be like, I would be so mad if someone bought it.
Yes, and let me tell you, I won't even discuss how many.
I'd pout. I'd be like, no.
I pouted a lot, but
Oh,
I got a pestle and mortar, and then another time a Harry Potter one came in.
oh, wow, that's cool.
I picked it up for $1.98.
Oh,
I tell people, and people do not listen to me, you do not ever, I am a witch on a budget. Okay.
oh yeah.
I have no budget. So when I go shopping, it's for real. But if you hit your thrift stores, you can find some of the absolutely most
Right.
beautiful pieces for chalices, for um, offering dishes, all kinds of stuff. You would be amazed, completely amazed at the stuff that you find at the thrift stores. And it's just the worst part is trying to walk
Oh,
out.
I know. Yeah. We finally got our thrifting fix recently, so I'm happy.
Oh, yes. Well, unfortunately, or fortunately for the thrift stores, I still visit where I used to work. So I'll go out there and it's a hike for me. It's about a half hour out, but it's one of the better ones. Because when you work for Goodwill, you get to know what stores carry what
Right.
most. So it's like, okay, we need this. So we've got to go to this one for this. If we want this, we got to go to this one for this, because I work for them, so I know. But there are some bargains to be had. And you never know what you're going to find when you go in there. And it just amazes me. Some of the statuaries, some of the things that people do not know or do know and just want to get rid of it.
Yeah. And that's what you don't have to spend a ton of money to have your tools of the trade. You
And that's what I try to tell people.
You
Just
can, find it in a lot, even the dollar store. My goodness.
dollar store's great. I love it for chalices. I used to teach a class where we did acid etching, and
Yeah.
everybody went to the dollar store to the thrift store to find the most unusual. And usually at the thrift store, because if people have a set of something and they break one, they get rid of
Those
the rest of them.
right. Yeah.
So you only need one chalice.
Right.
But if you find two, you have that extra one. So you can do doodads on them and you have two chalices, so for you, you are the unique shopper. You're looking for one, and if you find two, it's a bonus. So a lot of people get rid of stuff when a set breaks. They don't have the full set.
Mhm.
Oh, what the
That's
heck? I only need one. So
it's pretty awesome.
hit your thrift stores, girl. They're my
I
favorite place.
Well,
And
this is a ton of fun. We could go on forever. But
well,
I really
we want to
like
make
this.
one plug because
Yes.
we mentioned his name earlier. We're going to plug him.
Yeah. Oh, and he's got a new single coming out next week. I'm so excited.
But I want to plug him because he's been awesome. He's been on the show. This is
I know. I saw that last week, and I have the digital version of the album. So I saw that, and I need to buy the physical one just so I can have a message like that from him. Yeah, so I'm gonna so
so
just so you know, Cloud, I'm getting a physical copy just so you can write me a message.
we're going to harass him a little bit, but seriously, he's up and coming. He just got an
He's so awesome. He's so fun. I
what
love
was it
him.
he just got? He got I think it escapes me. He was accepted. He got some kind of something for the newest.
I think he was nominated for an award.
That's yes.
I can't remember the title at the moment, but
It's
yeah,
up
and he
and
has a new
coming.
single coming out. Yeah, he's awesome.
So if you guys are interested in this kind of music, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by it. I like it. So I've been playing it. That's why it's sitting here because I had it in my computer. And when you said his name, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got this sitting right here in front of me because I have the CD actually in the computer because I'll hit it and then go around and do my things and it plays
That's
music for me.
cool.
So
I love
yes, we shamelessly plug.
our producer, our our producers and our IT guy give us nicknames because we always listen to Cloud and yeah, and I'm going to be doing a song, so we have
Yes,
that's
we have connections.
it's kind of fun.
And again, I'm going to shamelessly plug. Lustrations are coming up all over for October, September timeframe. There are some coming out before then, but it seems like a lot of them are September, October timeframe. Please jump on and see what's happening in your neck of the woods so that you can attend safely.
Yes.
Still pushing the safeness, but the gatherings are starting to happen again. People are keeping in mind safety though, so they are planning them accordingly. But this is a great time, to start getting together. Springtime's coming. I know up north, you guys are going to start to thaw out soon, and it's going to be a lot of fun to gather up. But I'm going to plug that there are a lot of things that are happening. If you can't get to something, please zoom in on it.
Yes.
Everybody's
The
zooming.
ones in the fall are the regionals, and there is going to be a big one the weekend of Beltane, which is the global lustration. So that's gonna be exciting. But yeah, if you don't feel comfortable or you can't, I mean, obviously that's understandable. But Zoom is an option. We found that out last year. So join, and as always, like I said, like and subscribe. Tea Time with Mother and Crone on YouTube, and also our Facebook page, Tea Time with Mother and Crone. If you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to message the page if you don't want to comment on the page. And then you can also email teatimemc@gmail.com, and that's THYME, like the herb.
And we will try to put some of those Zooms and some of the actual illustrations in our Facebook so that you guys can see where they're happening. And if you know of any, please shoot us a line and give us the information on it, whether it's a Zoom or whether it's an in-person. We need to get out there. That's where a lot of these guys like Cloud actually can get out and start again mingling and selling and making his living by playing music.
And there, yeah, and we have so many artists. I mean, Ebony, I mean, we have so many. So yeah, and Cloud is, I think he said he might even, I think he might have some festivals that are slowly starting to come back toward the end.
He's got 2 so far that he's been asked to come to. So it is starting to open up. So we're just saying, if you have something going on in your area, wherever it is, and can feel free to publish it, we will, go over it. We're going to put it on Facebook. We're going to hit the different ones as it gets a little bit closer so that you can start looking at maybe planning a trip. Nothing's cooler than meeting your spiritual brothers and sisters at a retreat and just having the wildest time ever.
Oh, I'm excited. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Well, thanks so much. It was so much fun. And we will see you next week when we talk about another holiday.
We got holidays everywhere, don't we? So join us next week. And in the meantime, if you guys have any festivals, have anything up and coming, shoot us a line. We'll get it out.
Yes, we will. All right. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Next week.
I made this.